Om Shanti. So, welcome all of you to the episode 37 on being carefree. And before we begin, we'll spend a minute in silence to invoke the presence of the Supreme Being. Yes, so welcome all of you again to the Values for Life series episodes. And we are so fortunate to have Sister Maureen Chen all the way from Australia joining us. And thank you so much, Sister Maureen, for joining. And
Lovely to be with you.
yeah, thank you. And just to give you all a perspective that why carefreeness or why being carefree rather, carefreeness is not a word in English, but why being carefree after faith? Because these two values go close, very close hand in hand. If you have full faith in the Almighty and in many other aspects which we had discussed last time, you tend to become carefree because then you can unburden yourself, put the load onto the Supreme, and go on with life. And I'm sure Sister Maureen will give us a beautiful explanation of all this today. And before go on to the introduction, I would request Sister Claudia from Vancouver to please welcome Sister Maureen. Yeah, thank you.
Good evening from us and good morning for you and good afternoon for many of us who are here. So it's a very pleasure to see you with us and special talk about the subject carefree, because look at you, we can see what means to be carefree because your face shows. So it's quite nice to see you talking to us. And I like to offer you some flowers. We are the spring, same way that we are going to sleep, we are going to wake up again with the spring. And so all the spring flowers, all the tulips and everything. And I hope you enjoy.
Thank you.
Okay, we are looking forward to hear from you.
So thank you, Sister
Thank you,
Claudia, for the
sister.
beautiful flowers. And coming to Sister Maureen, she's fondly called Morni. I mean, she'll tell us all the stories about that, how Dadi Janki gave her that name. Probably I'm right what I'm saying, but she'll let you all know. And she basically is an Australian national, and you all can see she's fully Indian. I must not say Indianized, but I must say Brahmanized fully now. And and she has been into the journey of Raj Yoga since almost 50 years now, and she has been instrumental in establishing and sustaining various meditation centers, including Hong Kong, which was her prime service area for a long time, Cambodia, Philippines, and Australia as well. There are quite a few programs which she has taken initiative for. Just to name a few is the Peace Cafe, which was a vegetarian community cafe offering values as well as environmental training, and this was initiated in Cambodia. And all of you know, but particularly in India, I must say, the Future of Power project, which was organized for 4 years, 2006 to 2010, and over 50 different programs in 50 different cities. It was for all the different professionals which were catered to in India, and the program was all about exploring the use of soft power. She was highly instrumental in that, and currently sister is the coordinator of the Yarra Valley Living Center, which is one of our retreat centers in Australia. And just to let you know that she has also authored a book called The Mystic at the Edge, and it says a Western woman colored by Asia. And as usual, I'll first say a few lines for her. Having served around 22 years in the city of Hong Kong, the period of service there is indeed quite long. Carrying many other spiritual seekers with her along, and teaching all of us how to sing the beautiful life song, thereby making our bond with the Supreme more strong and leaving no margin of proving anyone as wrong. She tells us about the Supreme and to Him how to belong, which will indeed help us to make our life prolong. And finally, life then becomes straightforward without any oblong, and we stay safe in God's canopy away from Maya's thong. And a few lines about carefreeness. It's not an English word, as I said, being carefree, therefore we have taken it that way. So let's develop the virtue of being carefree so that we then become de-stressed and worry free. Because this knowledge is given by the Almighty, absolutely free. And let's now stop running the mad race and the rat spree. Let's pause and reflect. That is the Supreme's decree, which is an order, and by following this we shall then attain the highest degree. And then it shall really suit me the title of being called Shri. As all of you know, Shri is a Sanskrit word. And then Brahma, Vishnu, Shankar. I shall be close to these three. So with these worry-free, carefree and threes, let us just begin our journey. And before I forget, I'll just share the screen again and show you. I'm sure you all know it, but let me just do it for people. Some may be new to the talks. I'll just share the screen and show you that the interpretation icon can be clicked and you can select your language, which way you want to choose. And today, for some reasons, we are not having Tamil and Telugu, so apologies for that. And the talk will go on for at least say 45-50 minutes as usual, and then you can please start sending your questions directly to me, which will be taken after that, and then we'll have the closing meditation towards the end of the talk. So with this brief background, over to Sister Maureen for the talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manoj Bhai, and for the beautiful poetry as well. That's an added bonus in this program. So yes, as you mentioned, my nickname is Maureen. Actually, it's a name given by Didi Manmohini, whom I think many of you probably didn't meet because she passed away in 1983. But yeah, it's a very sweet name, funny name, but I like it. So this topic of being carefree, I would say, is based on two main things: knowledge and faith. I have seen how people doing the Raj Yoga course have been able to stop thinking about many situations. Some people just have a habit of worrying, and other people have a situation that they cannot get off their mind. It's an ongoing situation that they live with. But when we are able to find that perspective to understand and get an insight into what's going on, it's almost like a door to freedom. And sometimes it takes a little while. And it's also good to speak to people who have been on the journey, because sometimes they're able to help with that insight. But it's not that we can't find it ourselves. So I remember one lady, she was a warrior. And for no particular reason, she had a very good husband, her children were fine, they had wealth. It was just a habit. And after just doing a few lessons of the course, I said, has your worry decreased? She said, by 90%. Can you imagine? After 2-3 days, she said, I just can't worry about things that I used to worry about, because I find there's understanding, whether it's the philosophy of karma or whether it's the idea of being a soul and going beyond the consciousness of the body, but we can find a point of knowledge that will free us. And I remember another lady, she had her mother living with her, and she was feeling very bad because she'd always thought, her and her husband always thought, when the children grew up, then they would have a second honeymoon, they would have a holiday, they would travel. But now they had their mother living with them, and she was actually more in need than even the children because she had dementia. And the woman was feeling very bad because she didn't know whether to put her in a home or how to accept a situation that she hadn't anticipated. And when I just spoke to her about karma and that obviously she probably still needs to repay something to her mother, it was amazing because just a Western woman, Australian lady, she was just able to accept that. And I found many times it happens that people can just accept something instantly. And I wonder how, because sometimes I have an understanding of the knowledge and yet I'm not always able to apply it like that. I remember another person, he was a Buddhist monk, and we were in Hong Kong and we went to the theme park, Ocean Park, and he was very afraid of heights. And I just said to him, don't be afraid. I mean, we can all overcome our fears. It's our choice. And he stopped being afraid. And I said, were you afraid when you were up there? He said, no. I said, why not? He said, you told me not to be. And I thought, how does that work? Because even I can't do that for myself sometimes. But I think when we hear the right thing at the right time from the right person also, it can just work like magic. And I'm sure we've all got those experiences. But my experience really of this being carefree is because I came to Raj Yoga when I was only 21 years old, and I had no experience really of life or how to do anything, but I wanted to serve. And so I found myself doing so many things like writing articles, doing radio interviews, even television interviews. And I wasn't nervous because I wasn't doing it to look good. I wasn't doing it to be famous. I was just doing it because I wanted to share the message. So there was no thought really of myself in that because I wasn't the important thing. The message was the important thing. And so from the beginning, I've experienced that, in fact, I was told by Baba that he said, you have faith, but especially you have faith in service. And I find that service has enabled me to go beyond a lot of fears and hesitations and to just build confidence and also to know that anything's possible. When I first went to Hong Kong, I was only 24 years old, and I went to a foreign country not speaking the language to start a meditation center. We already had a center that was Hindi speaking, and at that time I didn't speak much Hindi. I have learnt since then, but at that time I spoke very little. And yet, there was no fear of going to a foreign country or doing anything because it wasn't about me. It was about service, just like a doctor will work with patients that are very ill. Of course, if they thought about it, they could be afraid that they may become ill, but they're just thinking to serve. So in the same way, service takes us beyond a lot of limitations. But one particular program I organized with another very young sister, younger than me, less experienced in terms of the practice of Raj Yoga, and just the two of us organized an Asian Women's Convention, just because we thought it sounded good, very naive. We had never organized any major program before, and we were so innocent that we invited many people to speak and they all said yes. So then we thought, oh, we've got too many speakers now. What will we do? Oh, we'll have to have it for 3 days. So this program just grew. And then people said they were coming from all over Asia and even from England. And in particular, we were doing that program with Dadi Manohar Indra. And then we ended up with Dr. Nirmala and with Jantiban and Nuerbai and so many other seniors that we didn't anticipate. And people came from all over Asia, which we hadn't planned anything, like the accommodation, the food, who's going to cook. As I said, there were just 2 of us. So who was going to cook? There was a small center and they did give some help. But what happened is a couple who have a 5-bedroom house, they said, you can use our house, our driver, we've got helpers. And my brother-in-law is going away, you can use his house. And so we had 2 very big houses so we could accommodate our guests. And the sisters who came to accompany the guests did the cooking, and somehow everything just went so smoothly. And in the middle of these 3 days, the other sister and I looked at each other and said, did we organize this? It was just perfect. It just went so smoothly and we had no problem at all. And until today, I can't even tell you where the money came from to pay for 3 days in a 5-star hotel. Maybe they donated it, or maybe people put money in. I don't even know. I mean, we didn't know how to organize, so we just let it happen, and it happened. Because I had that experience at such a young age and at such a beginning time of my service experience, I just thought anything's possible. So I never thought much about doing anything. I get an idea and I just do it because it happened before, it can happen again. So even here, we're having an open day in 5-6 weeks' time. We haven't had time to really do much, but I know it's going to be amazing and everyone will come and help and it will all be good. So because of that one experience, I know what it is. And in fact, Bubba's said that to me as well, your courage and Bubba's help. So even the type of courage that I have is not a brave courage. I heard a saying, it said, courage doesn't mean that you're not afraid. Courage is when you see something and you don't see what comes in the way. So my courage is a blind courage. I just get an idea, I see what would be a wonderful thing to do and just set about doing it. And that's where I experience God's help, because I don't know how these things happen, but they happen. And more recently, just in 2014, early in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, I just heard these words in my mind. Of course, they weren't words, but maybe you'd call it a touching. And it was very clear. It said, go to Taiwan and open a center. I was coordinating the national office in Australia, and I heard these words, go to Taiwan and open a center. I knew one person there. I didn't really have any money to speak of, and I speak little Chinese, not much, just enough to get by. But I said to Dr. Nirmala, our regional coordinator, happened to be in Australia. And so 2 days later, when she visited the Sydney Centre, I said to her, Didi, I got this touching at Amrit Vela early in the morning. What do you think? And she kind of looked at me and she said, well, I don't know, okay. So her okay didn't sound like she was fully behind it and going to support it financially or in any other way. But still, I called our centre in Hong Kong, where you heard I was for over 20 years. And I said to the sister there, I'm going to Taiwan to open a centre. And I saw myself arriving there with all my belongings, with just a little bit of money. I knew one Indian sister who didn't speak Chinese, but I just thought, it's a touching, it must be accurate. So I called this sister in Hong Kong and she said, oh, somebody here has been offering to support a center in Taiwan if anyone will go there. So money, I don't know how much, I didn't know how much, but some money would have come. And then I thought, good. Then I called another lady I knew there who I took to Mount Abu, to Madhuban, and she's Taiwanese living in Hong Kong. Not a BK, but I said to her, I'm going to Taiwan to open a center. And she said, you're the only one who can do it. And I thought, that's really strange that she says that, but okay. And I said to her, well, you come with me then. When can you take leave from your work? And I'll wait for you. So it was 2 months before she could get leave, and she met me at the airport, and we went to stay with her brother. And within a week, we rented a place, furnished it, because in those 2 months, people gave me money. So at least I arrived with some money. So I was able to furnish a center. Didn't know whether there would be enough money for the next month's rent, but it didn't really matter. I was just an instrument. And that, I think I've always kind of embraced that idea and believed in being an instrument. But this was really putting it to the test with no language and no money and no connections. And I really did feel that I was just an instrument, and I didn't have to worry about anything. I didn't have to make anything happen. And if there was no money, I'd pack up and go back to Australia. No problem. It's okay. So I just went with this. And within 2 years, 30 people had become sponsors for the center. And we had 2 centers in the south of Taiwan. But then COVID hit. So that was a strange kind of twist in the drama. So that's why I'm now here, still hoping someone will go to Taiwan. So if anyone out there is inspired, let me know. But you can see how we really don't have to worry about anything when there's faith. And I like very much, one time it was said that we need to make effort to have faith. I found that very interesting, because before I took up the practice of Raj Yoga, I didn't believe in God, and I wouldn't even know what faith was. It wasn't a word in my dictionary. I don't know what it meant before Raj Yoga. But doing the course, I experienced bliss, love, peace, happiness. I just experienced so much that I thought, well, something is happening. I don't really know what it is. So I was putting these teachings to the test in a way, like really experimenting with the method of meditation, experimenting with all the different things I was learning, and I found that it brought very good results. So when I say knowledge and faith, the faith is, I would say, based on knowledge. It's not a blind faith. It's a faith with the eyes wide open to see. And that's what we talk about, opening the third eye, to really be able to see what can't be seen with the physical eyes. And when we can see beyond what is seen with the physical eyes, it opens a whole new world for us. And so, yeah, it's really a faith based on experience and on experimentation. One thing that I've experienced also is that I very often have a thought. For example, when the Oxford Retreat Centre opened, it was the first retreat centre, I believe, outside of India. And I really felt that I wanted to go and I'm meant to be there. And I booked a ticket. I didn't have any money to pay for the ticket, but I booked a ticket and I thought, if I'm meant to be there, I'll be there. Again, I didn't worry. If I'm meant to be there, I will get there. Within 48 hours, someone came to me and said, this was when I was in Hong Kong. She said, I'm taking my daughter to summer school. Will you join us? I'll pay for your ticket to England. And I asked her what date, and it was exactly the date I'd booked. And that has been my experience throughout. So I know that thought power, if that's what we want to call it, I know that destiny is there. I don't know whether we create that destiny or we pick up that destiny, like where we're meant to be and we, are able to find our way there. I'm still experimenting with that. But I studied neuroscience so that I would be able to study means, just read books. I'm not very seriously. But I looked into neuroscience to try to understand how this works. Because I don't think I'm special. And I believe anyone can do it. And so science is telling us that anyone can do it. It's really the way we use our mind, that we attract whatever is forefront in our mind. And what I've also learned is one thing is to have a positive thought, but the second thing is to have the positive feeling. It's not enough just to have positive thoughts. And that's where I find the meditation is amazing, because when I started Raj Yoga, I'd heard of those things like, positive thinking and, all these kinds of teachings, Dale Carnegie and things were out there. But I thought that I can't just say, I am this, I am that. I couldn't do it. It wasn't, to me, logical. I couldn't believe that could work. But then when I started meditating and knowing how to create the feeling, if I create the feeling, I can create the experience. And so I can be in that state even before I've reached that situation. I can feel it, sense it, know what it feels like to be there. So in meditation, we create very strong feelings, powerful feelings, clear feelings. And so when we can feel and match that positive thought, then we can achieve whatever we put out there. And they're not really desires. As somebody said, healthy desires will lead to happiness. So there's nothing wrong with desires, but just check that they will lead to happiness. And somebody even said, rather than desire, use the word intention, because intention has kind of a willing in it. And as someone said again, when we have an intention, all the small desires drop away. Like if I want to climb Mount Everest, it's a very big thing. You have to save about $1 million just to pay for the air canisters and different things, Sherpas and people to help you. So if I have an intention like that, all the small desires of comfort, food, security, all the normal things that are kind of very elemental, these are the base desires, security, safety, food, they just drop away because I have a clear intention. And so understanding the mind and using meditation to harness the power of the mind gives me the experience that I can do anything. I haven't achieved that stage of being able to do anything yet, but I do believe it's possible. I still have to, work towards a few things, but I do believe it's possible. And I know stories of people that have achieved the impossible. That's why I also know it's possible. So one thing that we learn when we study the brain is that thoughts are more powerful when they are slow. So slowing down from beta to alpha, theta, delta, slowing down really helps us achieve much more. It's opposite to what the world says. They think you've got to be quick, you've got to be smart, you've got to, everything's about speed. But it works against the power of the mind. And I read a saying, it said, few leaders realize how little they have to do. And that went so deep in me. Few leaders realize how little they have to do. And it's all about right intention, right concentration, right awareness. So I don't need a lot of thoughts. I need clear, cohesive, imaginative thoughts, I guess, too. Because we have to imagine the future. We have to imagine the outcome to create it. So slowing down the thoughts is another way to achieve. So all of these things are quite opposite to worry. If I worry, I think I can't control my thoughts. There can't be an intention because I'm preoccupied. I can't slow down the thoughts. I don't really know what I want because I'm caught in a whirl, like they say, like a mouse on a wheel, and I can't get off it. And so all of this is that state of being in a state of worry, not being carefree. So if I can live my life with less thoughts, clear intention, then there's hardly any room for worry because it's such a distraction to where I'm going. So when I know where I'm going, all those other things are kind of just on the side. Whereas if I have no aim and objective, then I can just get preoccupied with all these petty little things that take up my life. So that's another big thing, that when we start to meditate, generally we have very little interest in petty things. It's just, I remember one time going on a boat in Hong Kong, and the woman who invited us, very generously, she invited us on this beautiful boat, but she was just talking about such mundane matters that I could see the yogis, around me just kind of falling asleep, drifting off, and so they all moved away, and I was trying to change the conversation. Because when we think in a very mundane way, our energy goes down. When we think in a positive way, a creative way, we bring our energy up. And so this also helps us not to fall into that state of worry, which is a very low frequency. It's often connected with shame and guilt and fear. They're all low frequency, whereas acceptance, love, courage, they're all, on a much higher frequency. So they achieve a lot more for us in our life. So I'm just looking what the time is. Yeah, we've still got a little bit of time. Another saying that I found really changed my life. You know, sometimes you just hear a wise saying and it changes your trajectory. So I heard something that said, wisdom is passion and tranquility. Because sometimes we worry about the world. Like now, we could really worry about the world because this situation with COVID has, you know, really a lot of people have gone bankrupt. Yeah, a lot of things have happened for people that are very difficult. The mental health issues, people not being able to have elective surgeries that would normally have happened. So many things are going on in people's lives. And then we have a lot more natural calamities like, you know, fires and floods. Australia had fires 2 years ago, now floods. So all the countries around the world are seeing a lot more in the terms of natural calamities. So wisdom is passion. So passion to me means I want to do something, I care. I don't want to just, you know, I mean, what can I do to help people in the world at this time? So I don't want that passion to go away. However, I need the tranquility, and I would say that tranquility comes from a philosophy. I've always been a passionate person. I started a charity in Hong Kong called Food Link, where I was linking hotels with charities so the leftover food could be redirected. And now there's 7 vans going around Hong Kong 24 hours a day collecting and delivering food so that it doesn't go to the landfill, just go to waste. It can go, you know, to people who need it. And then in Cambodia with the landmine, people affected by landmines who'd lost arms and legs. And so another charity teaching them a little to make jewelry so that they could support themselves. So I like to be involved in the world, in the community, and if I can do something and inspire others to do it, because actually that charity in Hong Kong, you know, with my little energy and time and resources, all I was thinking was to get someone to donate some boxes, you know, some cooling boxes so that the charities could just go and collect the food and maybe money to pay for that transport. Very, very small. As I said, now there's 7 vans going around Hong Kong 24 hours a day feeding 1 million people. So people want to do good. I found there's no shortage of people who want to do good. So if we can inspire people, then we don't have to do everything ourselves. We just create opportunities and inspiration. So, you know, I don't want to stop doing that if I can. If I can play a part, any small part in enabling some benefit, I want to still do that. But I don't need to worry, because the philosophy that I've adopted for my life, you know, tells me that things are going to get worse before they get better, that we have to go into the darkest time before we then see the dawn. So I'm not blind to the situations in the world. I know things are going to get a lot worse. So that philosophy helps me not to fret and worry about people and situations and the world in general, the environment, the nature. You know, we see animals decreasing in number, becoming extinct, a lot of extinction in Australia. So, you know, if I didn't have this philosophy, I would not only be worried, I think I might be angry because I don't understand why people can't see what I can see, and why don't they stop doing things that are very short-sighted. So I could be arrogant, I could be angry and worried. But the philosophy says everyone has their part, there's a drama that's playing out, and everything is going to become better. So after the night, there'll be the dawn. So, there's a bigger picture, there's a broader perspective, so that I don't worry about the world, because it's got to go through what it has to go through. There's an acceptance, but it doesn't also mean I don't care and I don't do anything. I'll do what I can, because I need to create, this is a series on values, I need to create goodness in myself. I need to become tireless in my love and care. I need to develop my creativity, my connection with others, nurture relationships. If I get involved, I'll have to do all of these things that develop other values. So as Manoj Bhai was saying, all the values are connected. Whenever we develop one, we will also develop others. But if we are a worrier, if we are not able to become carefree, we burn out. We can't sustain ourselves as a carer, or we don't get involved at all just because we're frightened and we think it's too big. What can I do? I'm so small. I have so little resources. So we don't put ourselves out there to help if we're a worrier. We have to stay quite beyond everything in order to be able to do our best. It's like when you get on a plane, they tell you, if anything happens, put on your oxygen mask first before you help others. So it's the same thing. I need to look after myself before I can do anything for others. In the sense, I need to build resilience. I don't think we come to this spiritual life just to be peaceful. We come to this to build resilience, because we don't know what we're going to have to face in the future. And we don't know what others around us, our loved ones, are going to face. And the people we care for or are responsible for are going to face. Because sometimes we worry more about other people than ourselves in that sense. A friend just lost his wife to cancer, and then he found out he had terminal cancer. They've both now passed away. But he said that it was harder caring for his wife when she had cancer because he felt helpless. Whereas for himself, he felt he could do something. He needed to learn and to see what lessons there were. So he found it easier to face his own mortality than that of his partner. So, yeah, there's a lot to learn when we go into this whole topic, but just a little bit more on faith before we maybe open up for questions and answers. That, faith is so vital in everything we do. Faith in ourselves, faith in others, faith in the drama, and faith in God. So we should check which one is the hardest for us, because that's where you'll have the biggest challenges. But we really do need to develop as much faith in ourselves in particular as we have faith in God. And perhaps that's what that faith in God is all about. Because as we have yoga, we come to know ourselves and experience ourselves, because I am also that, a being of peace and love and power and bliss. So faith plays a very big part. And what we say is, when there's faith, nischay, then there'll also be intoxication. So when there's faith, there's nasha, and nischint, carefree. So it all leads on from that state of faith. And one of the biggest problems in having faith in ourselves is that we take things personally. As another person said, I love to pick up these sayings from people, that we can see everything with either wisdom or woe. I don't know how the translators will find that word woe, but it means, oh, woe is me, oh, poor me. So wisdom or woe. And woe is when I take things personally. Because actually so much of what's going on that I take sorrow from is not even meant for me. It's the other person's projection or their situation, or they're dumping on me, or, there's so many things. So I have to be very careful about taking things personally. And it's a sign that I don't know myself, I don't have faith in myself. It's a sign, taking things personally. So let's just see if there's any questions at this point.
So thank you so much, Sister Maureen. There is a few questions in the chat box. I think that sister has left after asking, but I'll just take that question so that you can share your answer on that. She's asking about what you mentioned about the intention. I think in Hindi we say the bhav. What is my bhav? So often, she's saying, often we don't know what our intention is. So how to understand to have a clear intention?
Oh, very good question. That's a very good question. I'm glad you asked this, because I love to go into the depth of these subtle differences, but I can't say I've really gone deeply into this. But I would say that our intention is natural and aligned with our destiny. As one of my friends showed a graph, and he said that we all have a line. When we're off our line, that's the stress in our life. When we're on our line, things just flow. It's like magic. It's that feeling of being in the right place at the right time. And so I think it develops probably more as we get to know ourselves, that we get clearer on our intentions, that really deep meaning of the word intention. But I think just in the short term, the intention, it's like, I don't want to harm animals, for example. My intention is not to bring harm to any living creature. So this intention arises. It doesn't come, people can't make you believe something or make you feel something. It really is an internal state that arises. But if I have that thought, I don't want to bring harm to any living creature, it will really change so many things about our life. So, we start to change our taste, but we also have to face when other people kind of make fun of us or try to pull us in another direction. And, I'm vegan because when I see something, I can't ignore it. And I know there's a lot of suffering for cows in the whole dairy industry. So I have to be vegan. I don't have a choice, because once I see something, I can't go back. So then it affects, what you can buy, what you can eat. So, those intentions, I think they do arise naturally, and they're probably quite close to intuition and our conscience. They're all very subtle aspects. Like our conscience, often we don't listen to it because we don't want to. As we had one class saying we kill our conscience because we don't want to listen. But you probably had Mike George at some point on here, but he says that your conscience will dictate your life, whether you want it to or not. In other words, we can't go against our conscience. It will bite us. It will trouble us. We will not be able to sleep, or we'll get some illness. We can't ignore our conscience forever. We can for a while, but it's better not to, because our conscience is the guide as to who I really am. And it's always there, but it gets mixed up with other voices from society, from parents, from teachers. So the first step in all of this, I guess, is really listening to myself and listening to God. As they say, prayer is talking to God and meditation is listening, because it's a very, like yoga, it's very connected. You know, the more I am close to God, the closer I am to myself. So it starts, I guess, with the conscience.
Okay, fantastic. A few questions about, we confuse a lot between these two words, carefreeness and carelessness. Sometimes we become very laid back. We feel, oh, we are carefree, so let it be. But then we cross the line and become careless. So, what is the thin line between carelessness and carefreeness?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I remember one class, one muli, it was saying, yes, it's good that you are easy yogis, because we also call this easy Raj Yoga. And Baba said, it's good that you're easy yogis, but are you yogis? And that's, I think, a good thing to always be checking, that sometimes because of being easy, we don't have that kind of attention. And we don't get away with that for long either, because if we're not paying attention, we will be slapped by some situation or another. Whereas when we're paying attention, then we really can navigate this journey much more smoothly. So I think carelessness is a bit of an illusion, because we think it's going to be an easy life, but I'm sure all of you will agree that when we become careless, life is not easy, because whether it's relationships, whether it's whatever it is, we don't have the power. If we are careless, we lose our power. And, you know, we become what they say, bogies instead of yogis. We become more sensual. And a bogi spends, a yogi earns and accumulates. So when we're careless, we'll find that we don't accumulate. And so our power wanes. It just diminishes. It leaves us. So it's a very dangerous state. And one thing that I write quite a bit about in the book, because I was going to call the book something about comfort zones, because I think that carelessness comes a lot because of comfort zones that seem so normal, so very normal, but they can so easily be a careless state. So one of the reasons I've embraced doing things like going to Taiwan or Cambodia, also another very challenging country, Hong Kong, and going into the unknown very, very often, is because I don't want to stay in a comfort zone, because it's so easy to be careless when we create comfort zones and we don't even know it. That's the thing, it becomes normal. So it's not good to be normal. I think it's not exciting, and it's far from being yogi. A yogi actually is a mystic. When I was looking for the Asian equivalent, you know, the book is Mystic at the Edge. The Asian equivalent of mystic is yogi. So, you know, I'm a Raj yogi. It's not a small thing to say. And am I? I mean, I do Raj Yoga, but sometimes it's hard to call ourselves Raj Yogis because it's a big title really to live up to.
Well, fantastic. I just loved it when you said the yogi earns and a bhogi spends. It's a very beautiful corollary. The next concept, which is very difficult to understand, is people actually struggle to become carefree. But here in the teachings, in the spiritual versions of Brahma Kumaris, what we call Murlis, it is taught that you should become a carefree emperor. Like, it's difficult to become just carefree, and how can you become an emperor who's all the time carefree? Befikar Badshah, we say in Hindi. So, do you want to explain that? Yeah.
Yeah, because you know, when we talk about an emperor always sits on a seat. And so the idea of being a carefree emperor is that stability. I can become carefree temporarily, but an emperor implies that I'm a ruler, I'm a master, I'm a king. So it's like I can, you know, maybe do Tai Chi and practice it, and it gives me some health aspects, but to be a master, it's a different thing to just a casual practice. So in the same way, I can be somewhat carefree, but to be that king, Befakir Bacha, to be that carefree emperor, is to sit on the seat of being carefree, which means, you know, to be an emperor, I can't be unstable. If I shake, the whole kingdom shakes. And the emperor looks after and cares for and protects the kingdom. So it needs to be that stable and powerful and constant. That's the word, constant, to get that title. But it's all about how I position myself, which is also a very interesting way to look at, you know, like if I think that I'm hopeless, I will be hopeless. I will manifest hopelessness around me. So I need to position my mind. I need to, and that's what sitting on that seat is doing. It's holding an awareness, an intention, yes, but an awareness of who I am.
Right. So the emperor basically it connotes that you sit on the throne of self-awareness, as you rightly mentioned. Great. Okay. Have quite a few people now are asking since I took this word. They said, "Can you give us a few tips of how to become a carefree emperor?" I think one you already said to sit on the throne of self-awareness or soul consciousness. Any other few tips to become that?
I very much like in one of our books it said, after Sunday always comes Monday. So we never go backwards. But sometimes we feel like that. But as yogis and as students of Raj Yoga, when we go backwards, we only go backwards to find something to take us forward. We don't keep going backwards. That's not our practice. We go back to the knowledge to find what's going to take us forward. And once we embrace that stronger awareness or deeper awareness or new awareness, then when we go forward, we don't go back again. So then we don't just go into Monday, we get ready to go into Tuesday. So it's progressive. That's the important thing to realize, that even if I go backwards, it's only when I go backwards, I go back to the knowledge, because really the knowledge is what all those different aspects of understanding, like the 8 powers. You know, the 8 powers, every situation you have can be addressed through the 8 powers. So I would, one thing, suggest to put a poster of those 8 powers, and you can get everything online. You just Google 8 powers, Brahma Kumaris, you'll find a poster. But put it up. And if there's any situation where you're worrying or slipping backwards, just see which power am I missing that is creating this instability, and just practice that power, just like I need to exercise a muscle if it's weak, so I need to practice a power to make it stronger. So that's one thing, to really keep clear on those 8 powers, and to keep them in a handy place where I can remember that I need to use these 8 powers, because in the middle of the 8 powers is the yogi. The yogi is center stage. It's like I can only really have yoga when I've mastered those 8 powers, real yoga. So that is a very big aspect. But yeah, I think it's good to journal. Also, another thing would be, what I do is I write to Baba. And when I write to Baba, I start writing things like, but I know that if I thought like this, because if you write to Baba, you start to think like Baba, because you're connecting to Baba, which is what yoga is all about. It's letting the mind be influenced by God's mind, man mana bhav. Be mine with your mind. So when we start writing to Baba, then, we start to find all the answers. Or we could also do that second step of let Baba write a response to me. Sometimes I do that. If it's a little bit more intense, the situation, I write to Baba, and then I let Baba write to me. And it's very beautiful. I keep those in a journal. Some journals I just, keep and discard, but those letters to Baba and from Baba are a special journal. So just a few things.
And a concept very closely related to being carefree, and even being a carefree emperor rather, is developing what do you call, an attitude of being a trustee. So someone is asking that how do you become a trustee? I mean, what is the exact spiritual meaning of being a trustee?
Yes, it's interesting. Yesterday we had a discussion on surrender, because sometimes people don't like that word surrender. It's like waving a white flag. I give up. I lost. It can be seen like that. So we were talking about all these words, and trustee. It's like, what Baba was saying is, give everything to me. And what Baba said in that, he said, why, the point that came up was 2 days ago, I think. He said, why should you be obedient? Because Baba is the benefactor. And I thought, wow, that is so beautiful, because I know that Baba's intention for me is always coming from benefit. So that's the first thing. So if I give everything to Baba, then I know that as a trustee, Baba is the benefactor. And so he will use everything I give for my benefit. So I give Baba my wealth, I give Baba my mind, I give Baba my body. He will use all of that, of course, through me, but it's not mine, it's Baba's. But he'll use everything for my benefit. It's like if I make someone a trustee, I don't just make anyone a trustee. I have to believe in the person and know that they will use what I'm giving them as a trustee for my interest, for my benefit. So making Baba a trustee of everything is really the way that I can then become a trustee, because it's always 2 ways. It's never 1 way. So when I give Baba everything, then of course he can't use it. He doesn't have hands and feet, and so when I give everything to Baba, I am still the holder of those things. So I use them as Baba wants me to use them, because they're not mine. And if I use everything as Baba wants me to use them, then it'll be for my benefit. So that's another good way to let go of desires, because if I use everything, you know, as a trustee, then I'm using everything that belongs to Baba, and Baba's the benefactor, so everything will be used for my benefit, best benefit.
Right. We have a few more questions because we have around 6, 7 minutes more. So should we take them? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah. So someone is asking that right from childhood, we are taught these two words, rather three words, hurry, worry, and curry. I mean, let's leave aside curry for the moment, maybe, but hurry and worry. So, I mean, how does it fit? How can I really become carefree? Because I have just been taught to worry all the time. Even for exams, I have been taught to worry. How will I study otherwise? If you don't worry, my parents get worried if I am not worried. Something like that. And also, everyone teaches you to be all the time in a hurry, hurried. It's a hurried life. The life of science in this age is all hurry. So, how can we really practice becoming carefree?
It's interesting that you say, if I don't worry, my parents will worry. You often find with a husband and wife, all those couples out there, usually one of you worries and the other one doesn't. Don't do it. Share the worry anyway, because if one doesn't worry, the other one worries more. And then that one won't worry anymore because they don't need to. You're doing all the worry. They could be carefree. So be very smart about that. Share the concern, the responsibility. So that's one thing. But yeah, it's just so silly. It's so silly to teach people to worry, because you know, if we study the mind and this neuroscience, you know, the less thoughts we have, the more powerful. The slower our thoughts, the more powerful. So worry is quite the opposite of being powerful. And you know that when you worry, you know, you're so ineffective, very ineffective. And even for the special armed services, I think some of you may remember Brian Bacon. He used to work in Australia he went to Vietnam and he was working in the special armed services of the army, because then it was compulsory in those days. And he was chosen for the SAS, as they call it, because in a crisis he could stay clear and not react to anything. So actually worry is a state of reaction, and it is not good in leadership. It's not good in clarity and in success. So a lot of his talks used to draw on that experience of really in the time of crisis being very clear and really not reacting to anything. So it's nonsense, actually. It's really nonsense to worry. And it hasn't really been my habit. I think once in my life I worried. Yeah, there was a certain situation. What I saw after coming to Baba, what I saw is whenever my mind was free, like I was working, and when my mind became free, it would go to that situation. And I would create this, you know, I'd just start thinking about it. And I thought, wow, this is what worry is. It occupies like 24% of 100% of your mind when you're free. And this is what yoga is. Whenever we're free, where does the mind go? Does it go to a worry or does it go to Baba? And when there's love, as Baba says, it's much easier for it to go to the beloved. But this is just the natural, easy remembrance and that's the thing to check. Whenever you are free, where does your mind go? Just check that. And also to check, you know, when you're brushing your teeth in the morning, you're walking down the street, check. What am I thinking about now? We call check and change. So just check, and if it's not beneficial, change it. Because we
Right.
all absolutely know that worry doesn't achieve anything.
Okay. Uh, you touched a lot about this word worry, and you also mentioned warrior. So someone is asking, can sister elaborate on whether should we be a warrior instead?
Ah, a warrior.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, a good one. And the best one, of course, was Arjun. And why was he the best? Because he kept his sight on the aim. And that's like that experience in the SAS. You know, when you know what you have to achieve, you don't let anything take you off target. You have to just work towards that. And so we need to be that kind of a warrior, which needs focus, it needs position, it needs attention. You know, we are warriors, actually. We are warriors, spiritual warriors.
Yeah, so that's what we say in Hindi, Ruhani Yodha. So that's perfect.
Yeah.
And I'll just take the last question. It reminds me of someone has asked the question. So it reminds me of Dadi Janki, our previous spiritual, I mean, the administrative head of our organization. She used to say that though she really didn't know how to count money. Many people have told me that later. So she used to say, my pockets are empty, but I am still the emperor of the world, and that too a carefree emperor. So,
Yeah.
I mean, how does she, how can, I mean, how did she become like that? Can we also become like that?
You know, one of the things that I learned from her, she said, the only, I'm glad you reminded me, the only effort we have to make, okay, the only effort we have to make is not to worry. And Baba said, we have to have the courage to remain light. So those two are connected. We have to have the courage to remain light. You know, if fear comes in, then we go into that worry and concern. So yeah, Dadi Janki says the only effort we have to make is not to worry. And that's such a good checking point, because it kind of can be applied all day. You know, anything that's happened, the only effort I have to make is not to worry. Have the courage to remain light.
Fine. Thank you so much for bearing with our questions. So I would now request Dr. Ashok Mehta, who's joined us as well, to propose the vote of thanks. Over to you, Dr. Mehta.
Maureen man,
My brother, so lovely to see you.
takes me back 30 years, 91, when I was with you in Hong Kong.
Yes.
To promote the
Mm.
hospital, that was the beginning, not yet begun. And I remember your carefreeness. You took me to so many places, to the Women's Club, and to the Rotary Club, and to some of your very dear friends. I think we had all that nasha or intoxication of starting something new. I've always loved your name, Maureen, not Maureen. That's the most beautiful word that we used to have about you. I really enjoyed everything that you said. And we lost track of you that when you went to Taiwan, Cambodia, and and also to was Hong Kong to Taiwan and Cambodia and Vietnam. I wish I had an opportunity of meeting you in those lovely places where you had exciting time, starting new centers, going with very little resources and establishing. And that's your carefreeness. You've always been like that. I can still remember your fantastic laughter and your smiles, always happy. Happiness was a part of you. And I really loved what you said about people writing Raj Yogi before the titles. Everyone writes nowadays Raj Yogi. I sometimes wonder whether that's appropriate. But anyway, I think That's a privilege. It's like a title. I think everything you said has a lot of meaning. And one thing that to do good in the world, that's the purpose of our life. And for that, you have to be carefree. They're going through lots of major complications, major conflicts. And I also heard Maureen Ben the other day, the other Maureen of London, Ukraine. I think that's where one has to take the responsibility to do good to the world where it's required to bring peace, to go right in Ukraine and have a meeting. Thank you very much for spending the time and a good opportunity for me to connect with you after many, many years. Thank you very much.
Yeah, too long. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Dr. Mehta, and good you reminded us that Morni. So let me just tell you that it was Didi Manmohini who was one of our very first administrative heads, and I think the moment she met Sister Maureen, she said, "Oh, what is this name? You are Morni. Morni means a peahen, as all of you know." So there it is, and I just wanted to share the screen, which I forgot to do before. If you all want to know a little bit more about Sister Morni's, I must say now, Sister Morni's life in detail and about her carefreeness, you can read this book, which is available online, Mystic at the Edge, A Western Woman Colored by Asia. I wanted to show that before actually. And this, I mean, the abstract just tells you the book would be amazing because it is all about her life journey, like how she had been a monk before and then so on, her journey into Europe and then back to Australia and then through Asia. So she had, as you know, Cambodia, Philippines, Taiwan, Vietnam, all these, she's instrumental for preparing all the centers there. So thank you immensely. I'll just stop sharing here. And we would now go in the meditation mode. Anything, Sister Claudia, a quick thing from your side? Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that Dr. Mehta really told Maureen, like I told her at the beginning, she's a person that we look at her, we feel the carefree that she represents. So, and then through the speech, she was really showing us how to do and how to follow and to be really no worry, just carefree and have the faith that everything is going to be all right. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I'll just share one more little thing. I wrote to Nuebai once. This is another kind of worry. And I said to him, oh, people are saying that, you know, looking at my defects, and I want to also look at them and change them. But I also get a little sad, you know, when people point out my defects and, you know, I lose my, you know, intoxication when I think too much about them. He gave a very beautiful thing connected to this Morni. He said, but you are the peacock. The peacock dances beautifully, but if it stops and looks at its ugly feet, it will get depressed. So don't look at your feet, keep dancing. So beautiful. So I always try to remember, just dance, don't look at those little ugly feet down there.
Thank you.
So thanks all of you for your vote of thanks as well, and thank you immensely for the talk. And before we go in the meditation with Sister Maureen, over to Sister Anu for the announcements. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Manoj brother. I'll just quickly do the announcements. Everybody has said, and truly it was such a pleasure to experience the carefreeness that Sister Maureen shows, Morni sister shows. And like Dr. Mehta said, the peace has to be everywhere. So that was very inspiring. Very quickly, we will have our values workshop on being carefree as we continue the journey to experience more deeply that value that we get today. We got it from Sister Maureen. So we have our values workshop where we'll have the experiential exercises, looking into our own life and experiencing this value and strengthening this value. Along with that, we'll have our sweet sister, Sister Wadi, joining from Miami. She will also take us through an insightful journey of this value, carefreeness. And it's happening on 23rd April, Saturday, evening 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. for India time. That makes it 7 a.m. for West Coast, US and Canada. This is our joining links. And the next session for Values for Life series is episode 38 on strength. That is Bal, the power, but strength, and for which we will have our very senior Dr. Nirmala Didi. She is the Joint Chief Administrator of Brahma Kumaris and Director of the Australasia Center. So all Australia and Asia centers, and of Gyan Sarovar Academy, that is the Brahma Kumaris International Headquarters, Mount Abu, India. So she will be joining us from India. So our session will be again our regular time. That's Saturday, 30th of April, 8 p.m. India time, and that is 7:30 a.m. West Coast, US and Canada. Please mark your calendars and join us. And you can find more info about all these programs on our websites. That's vihasa.in and vancouver.brahmakumaris.ca. You can also find all the videos, including today's video, on our YouTube channel of Vihasa India and Brahma Kumaris Vancouver. Thank you, everyone. And over to you, Manoj.
Thank you, Sister Anu, and I would request Sister Maureen to go ahead with the meditation. I'll play some soft music in the background. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've developed a habit of carrying a burden, worries, concerns, problems. This is the habit we need to leave now. God, Baba, reminds us to give all those burdens to Him. If someone was willing to take your burden, your worries, would you give them away? Or are you too attached to those worries and concerns and the habit? We have found the one who is beyond, Param Atma. And need to learn to also go beyond. Why do I keep stumbling when I can fly? On the wings of thought, I can fly wherever I choose, into any scene I can imagine. But for this time, let me fly beyond. To the one beyond. and experience being beyond the worries and concerns and even the vibrations of this world that's becoming more and more intense. When I'm in the company of the Supreme, I am reminded that I am light. Atma, soul, incorporeal. Light. I am energy, spirit. I'm light. And I'm silent. I easily experience my true self when I'm in the company of truth. And in this state, I'm so free. And cared for. I'm carefree. Let this feeling surround your heart. Breathe into this state of being carefree and cared for. It's a feeling of being blessed, being showered with blessings upon blessings. This silence is so natural. Light is natural. As I bring my thoughts back to the body and feel myself sitting in the center of the forehead, using this body. I feel naturally light, free, cared for, cared free. Now my only wish is to help others become free. Om Shanti.
So thank you so much once again, Sister Maureen, for your company and your talk. And thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation. Om Shanti.